5 years after a solo hiker vanished in the Trinity Alps, I unearthed a heartbreaking secret. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I felt it in my bones, a shiver that chased through me like a wild wind through the towering trees of the Alps. Beneath the warm sun, I stumbled upon something that shouldn't have been there. Something wrong, something alive with past whispers. I found a weathered backpack, its faded colors barely visible through the dirt. A relic of hope turned to despair. This wasn't just a backpack, it was a haunting memory of a hiker who vanished into these woods, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. That I clutched the straps, my heart racing as my mind filled with visions of what had happened. 5 years. That's half a decade of unanswered questions and stories left untold. They said he was adventurous, spirited, a shining light among friends. But what happens to a light that flickers out? My fingers trembled as I unzipped the backpack. The smell of damp earth rushed out, blending with the sharp, crisp scent of pine. Inside lay a crinkled map, decrepit and yellowed, with strange markings I couldn't decipher. I could almost hear the echoes of laughter, the conversations he shared just before he took his final steps into the unknown. The sun began to set, casting shadows that felt like the weight of the mystery pressing down on me. Did he lose his way? Did he cry out for help? I pressed my palm against my chest, feeling the tightness forming like a vice grip. In the heat of that moment, my thoughts tangled with guilt. What if I could have found him? What if I was the one he needed? Memories flooded my mind of his sister, her tear-stained cheeks, a picture of hope turned into a search party that grew smaller every day. The weight of unfinished business collided with my pulse. It throbbed in my ears like distant drumbeats. As I studied the map, I noticed a glimmer caught in the fading light. It was a locket, tarnished and scratched. I lifted it gently, each breath growing heavier with anticipation. The clasp held tightly, begging for release. What was inside? Who did it belong to? More importantly, why was it here, abandoned in the wild? The forest around me whispered secrets as I cracked it open. My breath hitched. Inside was a small photograph, blurred but nearly recognizable. A face I knew too well. It was his girlfriend, smiling, unknowing of the storms to come. Their love was palpable, captured in that moment. I swallowed hard, a lump lodged in my throat. Memories flickered back. Were those dreams shattered with his disappearance? With each heartbeat, the air thickened. I could feel an undeniable connection to this family's grief, to the unresolved pain lingering in the atmosphere. I stood there alone, engulfed in shadows, the world outside reduced to a murmur. My heart raced with the thought of telling her, of sharing this small treasure, this heartbreaking piece of his life. But a question loomed over me like a cloud. What if this revelation opened new wounds? What if it meant the end of hope for everyone who loved him? I looked up, gazing through the trees, wondering if I was meant to be part of this story or just an intruder in a tale already set in sorrow. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness settled around me like a heavy blanket as I tucked the locket into my pocket, its weight almost grounding, yet amplifying the turmoil within me. The forest, both majestic and melancholic, felt alive, the wind rustling through the branches sounding like whispers of the past. I fought against the urge to scream, to release the pent-up questions that clawed at my mind. Instead, I turned and began retracing my steps, the fading light guiding me back to the trail, to civilization, a place that suddenly felt miles away from the fragile hope I had just unearthed. Each footfall felt heavy, a reminder of the burden I now carried. I thought of his sister, Clara. Her laughter had faded into quiet resignation over the years, but perhaps it was time for a rekindling of hope. Yet, What strings would I pull when I revealed a photograph she believed lost to time? Would it ignite a fire of remembrance or unleash a tempest of sorrow? I didn't have answers, all I had was uncertainty that as I approached my car, something shifted within me. The need to tell her, to share this bittersweet discovery, grew stronger. I fumbled with my phone, but the names flashing on the screen felt foreign, as if they belonged to a different lifetime before I became an unwilling guardian of a heart-wrenching secret. I hesitated before dialing Clara's number, fear and anxiety swirling inside like a chaotic storm. "Come on," I muttered, forcing myself to press call, no matter how hard my heart pounded against my ribcage. The phone rang with an ache that echoed my own, each chime sounding like a countdown to my inevitable confession. "Hello." Her voice came through soft, tentative, like the first spring flower breaking through the icy ground. My heart clenched at the thought of her expectations, the gnawing sense that I was about to throw pebbles into a tranquil pond only to watch the ripples of her calm distort into confusion and sorrow. "Clara, it's me. I found something." Silence hung between us, suffocating in its weight. My throat became parched as she took a breath so deep I could almost feel it. "What do you mean? What did you find?" There it was, the flicker of hope sparking. I hesitated, the words battling against the weight of the truth. "A backpack from Eric. It was out in the woods. And there was a locket." I could hear her sharp intake of breath, the tension in her voice rising like the tide. What was in it?" I swallowed, my heart racing. "A photo of you. From before he disappeared." The line grew quiet again as the realization sunk in, and I could hear her breathing, the sound tremulous and raw. "Why now? After all this time?" I wanted to tell her I didn't know, that something in me felt compelled, but instead I described the map, the markings, the fleeting essence of Eric that enveloped me in that lonely forest. I heard her sob, an echo of grief mixed with the tiniest thread of hope. Can we meet?" I can't process this alone," she finally whispered, her voice laced with fragility. Yes, of course," I agreed, my heart pounding as I scribbled down her favorite café, the place that had been their refuge amidst the chaos of life. As the call ended, I leaned back against my car, the weight of what was to come crushing and lifting me in the same breath. Would this lead to newfound paths towards healing, or was I walking Clara straight into the crucible of pain? My own emotions were a tempest, a cocktail of hope and guilt. The morning came bright and unforgiving, a harsh contrast to the storm of uncertainty swirling in my heart. I drove to the café, each passing mile amplifying questions that reverberated in my mind. The sun hung overhead, teasing the beauty of the day, while anxiety gnawed at the edges of my soul. When I entered, Clara was already there, her figure small and almost fragile in the bustling atmosphere. She spotted me instantly, eyes wide with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. I swallowed as I crossed the distance between us, her gaze locked onto mine as if she were searching for answers instead of merely waiting for coffee. "Did you really find it?" she asked, a tremble threading through her voice. I nodded, the weight of the moment sinking deeper. "I want to show you. I want you to have it." Her expression softened, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a glimpse of relief, a belief that maybe, just maybe, her brother's spirit lingered on in the fragments of his past. But then, as she reached for the locket, the café door swung open and an unfamiliar voice called out, slicing through the air with chilling clarity, "Clara. You won't believe what I just heard. They found something up there." He stopped short, his eyes darting between us, realization dawning like clouds parting in a storm. The emotional tide surged as I sensed the earth shift beneath my feet, the cliffhanger of fate looming ahead. The hope I had cradled threatened to unravel. What had they really found? The café erupted into a cacophony of voices and clinking cups, but all I heard was Clara's heart beating loudly in her chest, a drum of anxiety that matched my own. The stranger who had barged in stood frozen in the doorway, eyes wide with confusion. Clara's hand hovered mid-reach for the locket, uncertainty etched on her face. "What do you mean? What did they find?" Clara asked, her voice trembling as she turned to the newcomer, her body instinctively recoiling from the abrupt intrusion of this potential disruption. The man hesitated, uncertain about the gravity of the situation unfolding around him. I just heard from some hikers that they discovered a campsite like it had been left in a hurry. Tents, gear, all of it still up there. They thought it might belong to Eric. Clara paled, her hand falling to her side, the locket slipping from her grasp to the table, its metallic glint catching the light. The atmosphere shifted, a grey cloud swallowing the room, the warmth of camaraderie draining away as an unbreakable tension replaced it. That a million thoughts raced through my mind as I took a step closer to Clara, sensing her unraveling in a simultaneously terrifying and beautiful struggle. "Clara, wait," I began, but the words clung to my throat, all meaning lost. "What does this mean?" she asked, her eyes wide as she grasped for something solid in the whirlwind of uncertainty. Could he be alive? Or it could just be old equipment, someone else's gear, the stranger interjected, although his voice lacked conviction. Clara ignored him, her gaze flitting to me, pleading for assurance that I didn't have. All I could do was reach out, my fingers brushing over the locket, juxtaposed against this new revelation that felt like a knife slicing through the fragile thread of hope I had tried to weave. "I found this," I said, desperation threading my words. "This was a part of his life, it led me to you. It means he was here, but I don't know." "Stop." Clara cut me off, the weight of her emotions bursting forth like a dam breaking. "Stop trying to comfort me. I want to know what happened to him. If those hikers found something, it can't be nothing." The intensity of her gaze bore through me, demanding answers from a past that refused to be neatly packaged. The world around us faded, the hustle of the cafe turned into a blurred insignificance as we stood at the precipice of a truth we were both terrified to face. "I'll go up there," I declared, the conviction surprising even me. "I'll find out what they found. We can't leave this hanging, Clara. We owe it to him." "No," Clara's reply was immediate, fierce. "I can't let you do this alone. If we're chasing ghosts, I want to do it together. This is my brother we're talking about." As we locked eyes, an unspeakable connection formed, as if the gravity of uncertainty had grounded us in a moment that filled the air with electricity. There was a brief flicker of purpose amidst our despair, a shared mission, a bond steeled by loss and resolve. But the call of the unknown loomed, each question swelling into a tsunami of doubt. What if we uncovered something worse than we imagined? What if we found closure that shattered the fragments of our hope into irreparable pieces? "Clara," I started hesitantly, "this might not end how we hope. We could find something that I don't care." She burst out, her voice wavering but fierce. "I just need to know. I have to face whatever it is, even if it hurts. I spent 5 years living in the shadows of what could be been. It's time for the truth." Her determination sent shivers down my spine. Though fear coiled tightly around my heart, admiration for her sparked within me like a fragile ember refusing to extinguish. "Okay," I admitted softly, letting go of trying to shield her from the potential heartache that lay ahead. "We'll go together." But the reality of our decision hit me like a brick. The cafe door swung open once more, revealing an unfamiliar face, a woman with fiery red hair and an aura of urgency that darted past the shock. Her eyes flitted between us, and without introducing herself, she blurted out, "I need to talk to you, both of you. It's about Eric." Just when we thought we were stepping toward a path of clarity, another wayward current of confusion surged, pulling us under. The woman's intense gaze suggested she carried a heavy weight, one that could either bring more darkness or a flicker of light into our search for answers. "Who are you?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she took a cautious step toward the emotional cliff that had suddenly loomed before us once again. The woman paused, the depth of her breath hinting at an undercurrent of dread, as if she had come to deliver news that could shake the very foundations of our struggle. "I'm someone who knows what happened the day Eric disappeared." As she spoke, the room dissolved around us, our lives hanging in the balance of a secret that could unearth either salvation or sorrow. The stakes had risen exponentially, and the only way forward was through the fog of uncertainty we now found ourselves enveloped in. The air in the cafe grew thick with unspoken tension, each second stretching into eternity as we waited for the woman to gather her thoughts, her sharp gaze darting between Clara and me. I could feel Clara's pulse quickening beside me, her breath shallow, and the questions pacing through her mind mirrored my own tumultuous thoughts. "I'm sorry," the woman finally said, her words tumbling out in a rush, as though the release of them would alleviate some unseen burden. "I should introduce myself first. My name is Lila. I was one of the ones who searched for Eric, and I've loved him in a way you might not understand." Clara recoiled slightly, a flicker of pain crossing her features. The mention of love, layered with revealed histories, made the air around us feel heavy as if it had transformed into lead. I couldn't help but wonder about this woman, how many layers of grief and guilt she bore silently. "Loved him?" Clara echoed, a desperate edge in her voice. "How do you know what happened to him?" Even though I could see the uncertainty clouding Clara's eyes, her resolve dazzled with the need for a shred of clarity in the darkness that encased her heart. "In the summer of his last hike, we were together," Lila confessed, her voice softening with the memory. "He had shared with me his dreams of exploring the Alps. But something went wrong. A group of us went up together, and he took off on his own." The mention of the summer brought a flood of memories crashing down around us. I could almost hear the rustling of leaves, the thrill of adventure mingling with a sense of sublime freedom. Lila's words painted a poignant picture of nights spent under warm skies, stories shared around campfires, laughter against the symphony of nature. It was a life that felt so vivid, and yet here we were lost in the shadows of what could have been, Lila continued, her voice laced with a painful nostalgia. "I remember that day. The sun was shining, and Eric was so full of life. He wanted to test his limits, hike the ridge. I told him not to go alone, but..." Her breath caught, the tighter tension in her throat drawing all eyes to her. His voice faded into the woods, and then it was as if the mountain swallowed him whole. "We searched for days. There were whispers, speculation that he may have met someone, or run into trouble." "Speculation?" Clara's voice shook, a reflection of the raw wound she was frantically trying to keep closed. "What do you mean by speculation? You can't just toss around words like that. He was my brother." I felt Clara's anger radiating, pulsing like a heartbeat. It was raw and unrestrained, and I feared for the emotional scabs that the discovery of Lila's presence might rip away. "No one knew," Lila whispered, her head lowering. "The truth was darker than we expected. I couldn't face what it meant to know Eric was out there lost, alone. And when I left that place, I also left part of him behind." The vulnerability in her admission hit me like a wave, washing away my initial apprehension. Clara's anger quelled as she processed Lila's emotions, empathy flickering beneath the surface. Here we were, tangled in a web of shared grief, the ghosts of Eric connecting us in a deeper, more haunting way. "Why are you here now?" I asked, cutting through the air thick with tension. "Why speak to us? Why not reach out before?" Lila hesitated. "Because I've carried it too long. I thought my silence would protect those he left behind. But I saw that campsite too, and it shook me awake. Somewhere in my heart, I felt a pull to come back to face everything that was left unspoken." A shared silence wrapped around our collective pain, a fragile moment hanging between us like a whispered promise and a broken dream. Then, Clara stepped forward, the embers of her initial anger turning into a tentative surrender. "What if we could find Eric? What if we truly discover what happened? Will you help us?" Her voice, filled with determination, cut through the weight of despair, igniting a flicker of hope where none had existed just moments before. "I can take you back to where we last saw him," Lila said softly, the shadows of her past beginning to shift as if sunlight were breaking through the gaps. "But know this: what we find may not be what we wish for. Are you both ready for that?" In that moment, our fates intertwined, hurt and hope clashing together with enough intensity to dazzle. It was terrifying, yet there were threads of bravery woven into Clara's fierce resolve. As Lila's gaze shifted back to the door, I could feel the air shift, a new journey unfolding before us, laden with secrets and haunting shadows. "Let us go," Clara breathed, as if she had been given permission by the universe to confront everything she had dodged for years. But even as hope began to unfurl, threatening to blossom in the landscape of our despair, an unsettling question lingered in the back of my mind: would we deliver on the promise of closure, or would the journey deepen our wounds even further? Just as we started to move, a loud crash erupted from the back of the cafe. Instinctively, we turned as a figure stumbled into the room, a wild look in their eyes. The moment planted a seed of dread in my gut. "I saw him!" the stranger shouted, panting heavily. "I saw Eric!" Tensions erupted anew, wildly pivoting the momentum of our search, drowning the glimmers of hope beneath a wave of confusion. The cafe's atmosphere shifted once more, revealing that the story we were about to uncover was brimming with unforeseeable turns, an intricate tapestry of lives forever altered, and the promise of truth wrapped tightly in shadows. The figure's voice, trembling yet unyielding, sliced through the air, electrifying the atmosphere with immediate urgency. Clara and I exchanged a stunned glance, our hearts pounding in sync, a drumbeat of trepidation echoing around us. A familiar name hung heavy between us, yet the implication of those words was a cavernous void threatening to swallow the fragile hope we had just begun to nurture. "What do you mean you saw him?" Lila's shocked voice pierced through the chaos, her earlier quiet resolve shattered under the weight of a new possibility. The stranger pushed through the half-hearted crowd gathered near the back of the cafe, breathing heavily, eyes darting around wildly wide, manic, yet somehow laced with a flicker of recognition. "I saw Eric. He was out there. In the woods. He looked, I don't know, lost, but alive." Clara's breath hitched in her throat, the edge of belief stirring within her. "When? Where?" The questions tumbled from her lips like raindrops desperate to soak through the arid ground of her doubts. "Just last night," the stranger gasped, clutching the back of their neck as if the weight of what they carried was too much to bear. "I was camping not far from the old ridge where the search was conducted. I was awakened by whispers, shadows, and at first, I thought it was my imagination. But when I stepped outside, I swear, I saw him. He was looking around as if searching for something. Or someone." The cafe erupted into hushed murmurs, disbelief blending into fervent hope as every pair of eyes landed on Clara. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something that looked like determination in her demeanor, its roots entwined with dread. She opened her mouth, words held in abeyance, teetering on the precipice of a leap that could either shatter or reshape her understanding of loss. "Is it really him?" Clara's voice was barely above a whisper, but every word reverberated with an urgency that demanded an answer. "There's no way he's been missing for 5 years. I know. I thought so too, but listen." The stranger took a step closer, earnestness etching lines into their face. "He needs help. He seemed scared, like he was avoiding something or someone. But it was him. I swear it." Each word hung in the air like an unplayed note, suspended in time, quivering with the tension between hope and despair. Lila stepped forward, her face a mask of resolve battling the tempest of emotions beneath the surface. "We can't ignore this, we have to look for him," she declared, her voice now pulsing with new life. The prospect of chasing down a flicker of illumination amid the void filled the cafe with an energy that almost felt tangible. Yet as excitement and a surge of determination began to swell, I could feel a shadow curling around my heart. What if this was simply a mirage, another in a long line of disappointments? I caught Clara's eye, penetrating the daze with a single, searching look. "Are you ready?" I asked, my voice steady but laden with thought. "What if this leads us into further darkness?" Clara clenched her fists, her jaw set, mirroring the defiant spark that still glinted in her expression. "I have to know. I can't just sit here. We can't after everything. I want to believe, even if it's just for a moment." Her words struck a chord deep within me, fear curling tightly with optimism, while Lila met my gaze, an unspoken understanding passing between us as the weight of 4 long years danced in the air. Let us get moving, Lila urged, her urgency now mirroring Clara's unyielding determination. The longer we wait, the more dangerous it could become. As we filed out of the cafe, the balmy air wrapped around us, a mix of apprehension and hope weaving through our steps. My heart thudded in my chest as the memory of a long-lost brother crested in Clara's eyes, illuminating the path ahead. Yet, a voice in my head cautioned against racing forward into the unforeseen. Shadows lurked on the edges of corners, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they would soon reach out. That we drove in relative silence, the distant hum of the engine, punctuated by our racing thoughts, each heartbeat a muffled echo of the questions that swarmed, untethered, in my mind. Was it really Eric? And if so, what state would we find him in? The possibility of facing the truth we had yearned for felt like reaching through fire to touch ice, dangerous yet irresistible. As the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the horizon a molten gold, we neared the ridge. My chest tightened against the onslaught of emotions threatening to overtake me. In that moment, an unexpected sense of connectedness filled the air, the distance between us past pain, new hope breathed as one. But just as we approached the familiar trailhead, Clara's phone rang, the harsh sound slicing through the silence like glass shattering upon impact. I glanced at her, and her expression faltered into a mask of dread. The light of determination dimmed as shadows flickered across her face, mirroring the fear I had tried to suppress. "Hello," she answered, her voice brittle against the growing darkness gathering on the horizon that I strained to hear, but the conversation was muted under the weight of the moment. Then, I saw her face drain of color, eyes wide and trembling, a jolt of panic ricocheting in the silence. "Wait, what do you mean?" Clara's voice cracked, the strain palpable. "Clara, what is it?" I pushed forward, an urgent fear clawing at my gut. She hung up, her gaze lifeless, and the world collapsed around us. "They found a body this morning near the ridge." The flood of emotions flickered before us, thrusting us back into chaos, igniting old wounds anew. I grasped for Clara's hand, but she bolted, the fire of confusion burning bright in her eyes, as she turned the car around, leaving only the shadows behind. That we were racing back into the fray, uncertainty unspooling in our wake. The cliffhanger of our journey unfurled beneath us, as we spiraled away from hope, the final twist lingering like a cruel judge. Would we ever find Eric? And if we did, would it bring the closure we so desperately sought, or would it unearth an entirely new tragedy altogether? The silence that enveloped the car as Clara sped away felt like a cocoon, heavy and suffocating. Lila sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her gaze locked on the passing trees, while my own heart thrummed painfully against my ribs, each beat echoing a mixture of disbelief and fear. The truth lay sprawled out before us like a vast expanse of churning ocean, dark and unpredictable. "Clara, we need to talk," I finally murmured, my voice barely breaking through the oppressive quiet. "We can't just run from this." Her knuckles turned white on the steering wheel, but she remained unresponsive, lips pressed tightly together, stubborn strength morphing into something fragile. I felt a knot form in my throat as I realized the depth of her despair. To face Eric or the memory of him in such a condition was a weight I doubted even she could bear. "Clara," Lila interjected softly, "we can't ignore what they found, but rushing away isn't going to help us figure anything out." At that, Clara's grip on the wheel faltered. "What if it's not Eric?" she whispered, voice trembling as her wheels skidded slightly to a stop at the edge of a clearing. "What if it's just someone else? Someone I could have saved if I had only been there." Her words hung heavy in the air, saturating the space with a sense of shared guilt that seemed to warp our world even further. For 5 years, Clara had held the guilt of her brother's disappearance like a second skin, a darkness she carried with her into every moment, informed every decision. In that instant, I felt the ancient bond of grief tether us together, a silent plea for understanding draping over our shoulders. "There was nothing we could have done," I said softly, wishing desperately to break the spell of despair clinging to us. "We didn't know, none of us did. You didn't fail him, Clara." Just then, the sound of a mewling cat caught my attention, pulling me from the reverberating despair that cloaked us like a fog. In the corner of the clearing sat a small, scruffy feline, its green eyes glimmering with curiosity, lost yet somehow finding comfort in its own solitude. The cat padded towards us, emitting a faint, plaintive cry. As it approached, something about its presence seemed to break the suffocating heaviness that had enveloped us. "Look at that little fella," I said, unable to suppress a slight smile as the cat rubbed against Clara's still hand, drawing forth warmth in a moment submerged in ice. "See? Even the universe finds ways to offer small lights even when all seems lost." Clara's lips quirked just slightly, and the warmth of the cat reminded her that life still begged to be embraced. Lila reached out, picking the kitten up and cradling it against her chest, a welcome distraction to buoy Clara's spirits. "Maybe he can be a reminder," Lila suggested softly. "Remind us that even in darkness, there is still light waiting to be found." As we lingered in that bittersweet moment, the realm of possibility mingled with shadows of reality. Perhaps the universe was not completely indifferent to our plight, perhaps kindness lingered just out of sight to lead us back toward hope, but the respite was fleeting. A sharp ringing from Clara's phone shattered the calm as it buzzed ominously against her leg. She hesitated before answering, the earlier gravity returning as we all watched with bated breath. "Hello." Clara's voice was tentative, the earlier remnants of hope melting away like ice in the sun. The second stretched, every passing heartbeat an eternity as her expression shifted, morphing from apprehension to absorbed focus. "Okay, I understand. We'll be there as soon as we can," she said, her voice regaining some strength, but the shadows etched in her features signaled more bad news lingered just beyond. "What is it?" Lila asked with concern, her hands tightening around the kitten clinging to her. "It's the authorities," Clara replied, her uncertainty thick as fog. "They've decided to bring the media in. They think seeing his face might jog some memories. But it might also draw attention to the body they found." A chill swept through me, and apprehension threaded through my veins. Bringing attention to the situation meant the impending storm was only beginning. It would amplify the pain into the public eye, morphed into something even larger than our own private grief. That we spent a few moments wrapped in silence, confronting the implications of Clara's announcement, souls bound together by invisible threads of empathy and fear. In that silence, an unspoken agreement took root: we would remain united, whether our paths led us through further despair or tumultuous hope. But as Clara began driving back towards town, we exchanged thoughtful glances, feelings of determination mingling uneasily with dread. It was then that a sudden thought struck me, a shocking revelation lurking just beyond our collective consciousness. What if? I began slowly, holding the weight of the uncertain truth in my heart. What if Eric is alive? What if he has been trying to reach us this entire time? Maybe he knows more about the body and whoever was really behind his disappearance than we ever realized. The very notion wrapped around our minds, forging the possibility of something else lurking in the shadows, something that could unravel not just our understanding of the past but our connection to the present. Clara's expression faltered for just a moment, widening as the implications twisted through the air like smoke from an extinguished flame. What if it isn't just about Eric? Lila breathed, her voice wavering with something unnameable. As I glanced at Clara, I saw her digesting the flicker of truth, balancing precariously on the edge of hope and despair that we may just be stepping into something larger than ourselves, a tapestry woven with threads of old secrets and new challenges, each step echoing with the heartbeat of unanswered questions. This journey would lead us inevitably toward the twilight between light and dark, where the final threads of our fate lay intertwined, poised for unraveling. The sun dipped low in the horizon as Clara navigated the familiar streets of our small town, the fading light casting elongated shadows that seemed to tremble with uncertainty. The walls we'd built around ourselves now felt porous, the night ahead loomed with an unsettling mix of anticipation and dread. I stole glances at my friends, their faces shadowed by unfolding worries. "Do you think the media will know what to ask?" Lila pondered absently, fingers now absent-mindedly scratching the small cat curled up in her lap. The kitten, oblivious to the weight of our world, purred gently, its warmth a small balm against the chills settling into our bones. Clara let out a long breath, tension etched sharply in her brow. "I don't know, but I just hope they don't twist this into some sensational tragedy." It's Eric's life they're talking about. He deserves more than to be dissected for ratings. The thought hung between us a moment longer. What would happen if the pendulum swung too far into public eye? Clara's anguish would be stripped bare, laid open for strangers to comment on. It felt wrong, like discarding the deepest grief into a spectacle for others to analyze for entertainment. Would our already fragile collective heart withstand the scrutiny? As we pulled into the parking lot of the old community center, where the press conference would be held, apprehension churned in my stomach. A line of reporters, camera crews, and curious locals were gathered, murmuring low to one another, forming an anxious crowd waiting for the chance to be summoned. The air buzzed with a mix of sympathy and insensitivity. Clara stiffened next to me. "Maybe we should just tell them we aren't ready," she murmured, glancing out at the throng of faces, each one brimming with desperate curiosity, each as readable as the headlines they would churn out tomorrow. "It might help to talk," I suggested softly. "Maybe it'll give us some closure or at least draw attention to what has happened. We'll be able to focus on Eric. If he's out there, this might help him come home." But the words felt hollow, less a salve for our wounds and more vinegar splashed over them. It was Lila who broke the tension, sliding her hand over Clara's with the gentle affection only a friend can manage in moments like this. "Whatever you decide, we'll be here," she promised, her eyes resolutely meeting Clara's. With a deep breath, Clara nodded. "Okay. Let us do this for Eric." As we stepped onto the makeshift stage, cameras flashed in a split second of blinding light, capturing our uncertainty in stark detail. Clara stood in the center, visibly gathered yet trembling at the edges, while Lila and I flanked her, tenuously sharing her strength. The sight of the faces in front of us hurt, laughter and smirks exchanged as if the darkness to come was merely a story for their entertainment. A suited official took to the podium, speaking in clipped, practiced sentences about the search for Eric, reciting facts as though he were reading from a ledger while our world shattered behind him. Clara's voice wavered as she finally reached the microphone. "My brother, he loved the mountains. He was an artist in his own right. We hadn't lost hope that we'd find him." Her words felt like tiny sparks against a wall of water, brave and beautiful but weakened by the heaviness of anguish still clinging to her. The atmosphere shifted, the weight of Clara's sincerity pulling in the lines of their faces. "We won't let his memory fade in the shadows. If you have any information, please come forward. He doesn't deserve to be lost or forgotten." The buzz among the reporters shifted, the onlookers lowered their defenses, a muted respect inching into their eyes. Perhaps we hadn't come too late. Perhaps there was still hope for those lost, for the paths still unknown. But then, an unexpected voice cut through the moment, sharp as a knife. "Didn't you say he was a solo hiker?" A reporter challenged, no shred of empathy evident in their tone. "What makes you think he didn't simply choose to disappear?" Clara's breath caught the questions hung in the air, thickening into a stifling fog. The tension crackled, and for an agonizing second, silence reigned. I could almost see the shock wave ripple through the crowd. Anger flared in Clara's eyes, but before she could respond, Lila managed to squeeze her hand tight, trying to anchor her in a moment drowning in potential turmoil. "That's not fair," I blurted out, outraged. "You can't just dismiss his worth, his life." The reporter shrugged, unwavering. "It's a possibility, isn't it? Shouldn't we all consider that?" But the room was becoming chaotic. People murmured, listening for answers to questions they weren't even prepared to ask. In that moment, my world spun with a new revelation: the truth behind Eric's disappearance layered beneath unexamined motives, hidden in the shadows of his choices. "Let it go," Clara's voice pierced the air, an unexpected strength coursing through her as she faced the crowd, determination melting her uncertainty. "Whatever happened, Eric is still our brother, our son, more than a story to sell. We are here to find him. And if there's anyone who can help, I urge you to please, come forward." The chatter subsided. I half expected to see the walls of our lives come crumbling down around us. But instead, a sense of awareness emerged from the crowd. Just then, a commotion erupted at the back, drawing every gaze, a woman pushing through the throng of bodies, eyes wide with desperation. My heart raced as she approached, her lips moving, but the words drowned in the murmur of shifting bodies. The air thickened with tension, and questions bloomed like weeds in my mind. What did she know? Who was she? Was this a lifeline, or would this revelation plummet us further into despair? As the crowd parted, she locked eyes with Clara, and I felt a jolt of something I couldn't quite identify. Hope, fear, anticipation, each emotion swirled in a tumult of uncertainty. The impending storm was about to descend an unknown trajectory of our fate, waiting to unravel the next chapter of heartache hidden beneath gloom. Clara? The woman called, her voice shaky yet firm. I know where he is. The woman's words sent a ripple through my chest that felt like electric shock, a violent intrusion into our fragile moment. Clara's expression shifted from confusion to light, then back to guardedness, as if someone had drawn a curtain on her hope. The crowd murmured, shifting as they sensed the weight of the moment. Who are you? Clara managed, her voice barely above a whisper, raw with emotion. I'm sorry for intruding, but my name is Mia, the woman said, breathless as she reached the front. She swept her gaze over Clara's face, searching for recognition. I was hiking near the area where Eric went missing. I think I saw him. Gasps erupted around us, and for an instant, the chaos of the world faded into a hush, all eyes glued to Mia. Hope flickered in Clara's eyes, a dangerous ember threatening to ignite a flame. What do you mean you saw him? I pressed, the dread in my stomach morphing into anxious curiosity. When? Where? Mia's face fell, shadows dancing across her features. About 4 months ago, I was out in the Trinity Alps. I saw someone, a man who looked like him. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. But then I saw him standing on a ledge. He seemed to be waiting for something. A collective inhale surged through the crowd. Clara's breath hitched, and I caught her arm tightening in shock. Are you certain? She asked, her eyes glistening with a cocktail of hope and fear. Yes, Mia insisted, taking a step closer. I wasn't sure it was him at first. I was camping alone, and it scared me. He looked lost, but there was something in his eyes, a kind of resolve. The murmurs swelled, almost drowning out Mia's words. But I didn't have the courage to approach him. I thought he'd be fine, that he'd find his way. Her voice quivered now, shame weaving through her confession. It was so reckless of me. I didn't know. Clara's face crumpled, betraying the storm within. It's not reckless, she whispered, retreating slightly, as if trying to shield herself from the revelation that was too soon emerging. You didn't know. Lila screamed softly beside us. How do we know he is still there? What if he needs help? Mia swallowed hard, her eyes glistening with unspilled tears. That's why I came here. I didn't know who else to tell. I started feeling guilty, thinking if I had acted differently, maybe he wouldn't be lost. I followed up with search parties, but she faltered, guilt crushes apparent in her voice. They hadn't found anything. I just didn't want to stay quiet anymore. Clara's breath was a shuddering whisper. If you think he is still out there, we have to go. Wait, Lila interjected, panic flaring as she stepped forward, her eyes wide. We can't just rush out there. It's been months, and he could be anywhere. It's not safe. I don't care, Clara shot back, the fire simmering in her tone. He is my brother. If there is even a chance he is out there, but we need a plan. Lila insisted, her hands trembling. We can't dive in without preparation. What if it's dangerous? Mia's gaze flickered between the two friends, uncertainty gnawing at her. It could be dangerous, but he might still be alive. We owe it to him to try. Now, I could feel my heart pounding as uncertainty wrestled with adrenaline. Clara's heartache poured into the plea for her brother. The strength emanating from her was awe-inspiring, yet the risk hung like a shadow. Just then, a hand clasped my shoulder, bringing me back. It was one of the reporters. "Do you think the public will want to know where the search parties will explore next?" he suggested, words falling flat, devoid of care. "This could be your story, the turnaround everyone has been waiting for." Clara's steel resolve faltered momentarily. "This isn't a story," she snapped, anger igniting beneath her raw sorrow. "This is Eric's life." Collapsing from the emotional weight, Clara's shoulders sagged. The vulnerability cracked the armor surrounding her heart. But Mia stepped forward, unwavering. "If we're going, we should go now. Time is of the essence." "Okay," Clara said, the fire in her voice slowly morphing into a quiet strength, the essence of a woman who had faced the worst kind of darkness and was unwilling to retreat. "We'll go." Lila looked back at me, her eyes filled with fear as she realized we were fully committing to the unknown. What if this is a mistake?" she murmured, voice trembling. "It's not," I said with stubborn conviction, grasping my fear and turning it into determination. "We'll find him." But just as we turned to leave, a crackling chaos emerged from the crowd. A man shouted that he had a lead too. Someone had claimed to have seen Eric in a different part of the trail weeks earlier. I could sense the tide of the gathered crowd shifting, murmurs of disbelief spiraling through the anxious spectators. Clara stood there, flanked by new and old uncertainty, as the weight of these revelations coalesced into a storm that threatened to pull us under. "Clara," I said, my voice warm yet thick with dread, "we need to make a choice now." The question loomed upright, a pendulum poised between optimism and despair, and time felt paralyzed, waiting to see which way we would swing. Would we play the game of chance or plunge into the dark unknown, bracing for whatever awaited us? As Clara hesitated, the laughter and smirks from earlier receded into unmentionable echoes, a world beyond our reach unraveling upon the precipice of our heartache. The dim light of dawn barely pierced through the fog that clung to the mountains like a shroud, wrapping the world in a murky embrace. Clara stood by the car, her fingers clenched around the door handle as if it were a lifeline. I could see the uncertainty churning in her chest, the weight of her decision pressing down like an oppressive blanket. "Are you sure about this?" I asked quietly, not wanting to infuse my words with more doubt than necessary but feeling the fragile nature of hope hovering around us, ready to shatter. Clara turned, her eyes meeting mine with a fierce spark that belied her hesitation. "I have to. If Eric is out there, I can't just stay back." Her voice cracked, a poignant reminder of the excitement and fear locked in a single heartbeat. Lila shook her head, her worries plainly etched across her face. "But we have no idea what we're walking into. What if this leads us somewhere dangerous? We've been without vital resources for months." Mia, standing nearby, chewed on her lip, clearly torn between the desire to help and the lingering regrets haunting her. "I can guide you," she offered, "I can show you where I saw him last. But I also want you to prepare for the worst. It might be nothing but a ghost from my imagination." The crowd buzzed with fervor as new leads emerged, whispers fluttering in the air like trapped moths. I understood their fascination. For so many, the tale was one of tragedy, shrouded in mystery and speculation. But for Clara, this was her brother, her real, living brother, somewhere lost in the echoes of the mountains, where the sun's warmth couldn't reach him. As Clara nodded, I saw a mix of defiance and courage washing over her. She stepped closer to Mia. "Show me." We climbed into the van, a clumpy forest green affair with a faded sticker decal. It felt like a vessel that would carry our hopes or perhaps our despair into the wilderness. I couldn't help but feel that each mile would stretch our limits, yet the unyielding grip of curiosity rang loud. Once we hit the trailhead, the forest loomed in front of us, ancient trees stretching towards the sky, whispering secrets of the past. Clara led with courage, each step echoing her resolve. Lila followed closely, stealing glances at Clara while her mind traversed the worries that knotted her stomach. As we hiked deeper into the woods, the air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and pine needles, and the occasional sound of bird call resonated in the vast silence. Mia walked beside Clara, her presence a comfort, yet secrets lingered in the space between them. "Have you thought about what you'll do if you find him?" Mia's question broke the silence, a soft inquiry woven with concern. Clara paused, her eyes reflecting sunlight, yet clouded with uncertainty. "What do you mean?" "I know it's hard to think about," Mia continued, her voice steady. "But if he is changed, if he isn't the brother you remember, what will you do?" For a moment, the question hung heavy in the air. Lila instinctively inched closer to Clara, their shared fears creating a bond in the face of the unknown. "I don't know," Clara finally admitted, tears pooling in her eyes. I want to see him again. I want to know he is okay. Everything else can wait, at least for a moment." Lila reached out, squeezing her friend's arm, grounding her in reality. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." A spark of warmth ignited within me as I watched them, a reminder of the love that colors the edges of our fears. It was beautiful, yet daunting, the overwhelming desire to protect each other while standing on the precipice of heartbreak. Hours lengthened into an eternity as we navigated stony pathways and fallen branches. Just as despair threatened to creep in, Mia pointed out an overlook, the kind of breathtaking view that caused even the most stoic to catch their breath. "It was right over there," she said, her tone signaling something deeper. "I saw him from this spot." We all stood in a hushed reverence, staring at the breathtaking expanse. Then, Clara broke the silence. "What if he is out there, waiting?" Mia hesitated. "I wish I could say for sure. But..." The sudden sound of a rustling bush snapped our attention back to the task at hand. We all turned in unison, hearts racing. "What was that?" Lila's voice trembled slightly, panic radiating from her. Mia motioned for silence, her focus sharpening as she leaned closer to the source of the sound. The forest was alive with latent possibility, and the tension in the air was palpable. "Stay together," Clara whispered, the instinct of protection overwhelming her fear. Just then, from the rustling, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the rising sun, disheveled and gaunt, yet somehow familiar. "Eric?" Clara's voice cracked, filled with both yearning and disbelief. As the figure stepped forward, the world came crashing down around us, anticipation morphing into horror as the truth unfurled. The face was not her brother's, and neither was it a stranger but a reflection of everything left undone, hauntingly close yet heartbreakingly far. In that moment, the air thick with unfulfilled hopes and dreams, a new revelation rippled through us. The search was far from over, and the shadows of our journey loomed larger than ever. My heart raced as I stood frozen, caught in the wake of what felt like a shattering dream. The figure before us, while undeniably real, was not Eric. It was a ghost of lost hope, a reminder that the heart can carry a weight that the mind refuses to accept. Clara's breath hitched beside me, and I could see the tremor coursing through her body as she processed the enormity of our encounter. For a fleeting moment, the world around us dissolved, transforming the forest into a backdrop of faint echoes and heavy sorrow. "Who are you?" Clara's question pierced through the silence, trembling yet steady, demanding answers that too often dance just beyond our reach. The man stepped forward, and I could see the weariness etched into his features, the shadows of emotions lurking just beneath the surface. His eyes flickered with recognition, but the sadness within them carried stories of untold grief. "My name is Sam," he replied, his voice raspy and worn. "I was part of the group that last saw Eric." The words hung heavy in the air as they sank into the ground beneath us, crates of helplessness piling in our chests. "We thought he'd taken a different route, but when we found out he was missing." His voice faltered, and I could see the regret wrap around him like a shroud. Clara stepped forward, desperation in her voice. "You need to tell us what happened. We've been looking for him for so long." The flames of hope flickered in her eyes, and I feared they would plunge into the depths of despair if not tended to quickly. Sam hesitated, glancing away as if conjuring memories long buried. "That day was chaotic. Eric, he was so alive, so full of enthusiasm. Something changed that afternoon, though. He didn't want to stick with the group any longer. He said he wanted to push further, to take in the unexplored parts of the mountains before they closed for the season. Silence draped over us, heavy like a fog. I didn't think much of it at the time, Sam continued, guilt lining his words. But once he left, things went haywire. The storm rolled in, and our tiny group splintered. When we reconvened, he was gone. We searched for days, but the mountains were unforgiving. Clara's face paled, each detail drawing pale lines of sorrow on her cheeks. He shouldn't have been alone, she murmured, shame cresting like a wave beneath the sorrow. He should have known. Sam cut her off, his voice rising with a raw edge. You can't take that on yourself. He was doing what he loved, chasing the very freedom he held inside. It was his pursuit, his choice. We all thought he would be safe. What if he isn't? Clara shot back, anguish flaring in her eyes, the simultaneous fight for her brother and against her guilt coiling like snakes around her heart. What if he needs us? Sam's eyes softened, and the ghost of his own despair flickered in their depths. Then we must find him. But we need to be ready for anything. The mountains can be treacherous. I felt the depths of his words as they echoed within the caverns of our fears. There was still a chance, but that chance was steeped in uncertainty. Clara turned to us, a fire igniting in her spirit, mingling with the remains of hope tied to her brother's name. We're leaving now. We have to go back, she said, determination stealing her voice. Lila's grip on my arm tightened. We don't know what we'll face, she cautioned gently, concern lacing her words. We need to have a plan. Then let us make one on the move, Clara insisted, her eyes locked onto Sam. You know the trails, the spots. You can show us how to search for him safely. As we set the course, the journey morphed into a fragile choreography of hope and despair. The forest stretched before us, looming shadows whispering of secrets long buried, yet the flicker of Eric's spirit pulled us forward like an unextinguished lantern in the depths of night. With each step, we climbed beyond the boundaries of anxiety and toward the embrace of hope that still lingered in the raw air. Time felt elastic now, stretching in ways I had never encountered, each second a breath within an unfurling future. The base of the ridge where Mia claimed to have seen Eric, the sun sunk lower, casting splashes of crimson hues against the treetops, a perfect canvas of distress and beauty intertwined. Clara's fingers brushed against a tree as she nodded to Sam. This is it. Tell us what you remember. As he recounted the contours of the land, the sun dipped lower, casting an eerie glow across the crest. Suddenly, an unseen wind stirred, rustling the leaves around us like a chorus of quiet murmurs. Find him, find him, find him. Then it broke through, an undeniable presence settled in my chest. Our hearts were bound to this journey, to uncrossing the tangled lines of grief and blending our stories into a new dawn. Look over there, Sam pointed, his voice urgent yet steady as he squinted into the distance. The last time I saw him, he was moving towards that rocky outcrop. It's not far, but I have to warn you it can be steep. If we're thinking he is somewhere near there, we need to exercise caution. Clara nodded, bolstered by a surge of adrenaline. Let us go. With every moment, we embraced the possibilities and fears alike, and as we approached the rocky outcrop, a vivid scene unfolded before us. It was as if the mountains held their breath in unison, bearing witness to our prayers in the face of desperation. Eric! Clara called, her voice piercing through the burgeoning stillness. We're coming. If you can hear us, let us know. The sound echoed against the craggy rocks, each word wrapping around us like threads binding our faith in the unseen. Just as silence crept back in, heavy and uncompromising, a rustling emerged, faint at first, growing louder, a noise that sent a flurry of heartbeats racing through the air. Did you hear that? Lila whispered, her voice tinged with disbelief and hope. Another rustle, this time accompanied by a figure emerging from the brush, ragged but undeniably bold. My heart plummeted and soared simultaneously as realization dawned, choking me into silence. Eric? Clara's voice trembled, a flame igniting within it, and as the world tilted on its axis, he stepped into the fading light of the evening, but it wasn't he, just Eric. He stood there, frail, wild-eyed, and yet undeniably alive, tethered by the weight of the years spent wandering the shadows. "Yes," he managed, a broken smile warming the air. "I made it back." The energy of that moment pulsed like a heartbeat through our collective souls, overwhelming our senses. Trembling tears pooled in Clara's eyes as they locked onto her brother's face, her fragile heart bursting through the weight of years of grief. Each step toward him was shaky, our hearts racing toward a future suddenly brightened by the possibility of what could unfold. "We thought we lost you," Clara sobbed, the walls of her sorrow beginning to dissolve as she drew him into her embrace, their bond reigniting with fierce intensity. "I wanted to come home," Eric whispered, his voice shaky, breaking under the weight of shared grief and unconditional love. "But it wasn't safe. Why didn't you come down sooner?" Sam pressed, concern lacing his words as he stepped closer, yet the warmth of reunion hung heavy in the air. Eric paused, his gaze drifting downwards as memories washed over him. "I was afraid of what I'd become and who I'd left behind. I needed to figure it out, to confront the demons and find the light again." As he stepped closer to Clara, the years of emptiness began to fade, the whirling storm of emotional turmoil calming within the embrace of familial love. "I thought I'd lost you," Clara murmured, grounding her brother in a love that time could not erase. Mia stepped forward with tears shimmering in her eyes, the weight of regret merging with joy. "You're home now," she assured him, her heart softly easing with the truth both for herself and for him. As we all stood there, a collective breath finding its place in the air, I felt a shiver run through me. The shadows were long, the mountains vigilant, but we had emerged from darkness renewed. We had chased demons beyond the depths of despair and returned triumphant, restored by bravery, love, and the unbreakable bond that united us. In the heart of the wilderness, illuminated by the last glow of dusk, I understood that the delicate thread of connection had woven beyond sorrow. Together, we would shape our new story in the embrace of one another, and at the edge of tomorrow, we would face all the unknowns that awaited. And as Clara turned to me, her eyes shining bright amidst sorrow, she spoke the powerful words drawn from the depths of heartbreak and hope. "Sometimes, the darkness shows us the light just beneath the surface. Together, we'll find our way." The final echoes of emotion swirled around us, an unbreakable promise binding us together as we embarked on this new chapter, knowing that the mountains we journeyed through would always be shadows of our past, yet reminders of the light we carried in our resolve, always aflame against the darkness.